Hey, it's Dylan.
James.
Dane is gonna send us his clip. He's out of town right now, so
He'll be doing problems 1 and 2.
yeah.
And so we'll be starting with problem 3. It asks us, suppose that you're studying the inheritance of grin and disappearance traits in a rare breed of Cheshire cat. And we know that, so once we do the cross, which is homozygous for both grin and disappearance, for both parents, we get this result. So for grin, large grin, and the disappearance trait, we have 9 out of 16. For small grin and disappearance, we got 3 out of 16. Large grin and non-disappearance trait, we got 3 out of 16. And finally, small grin and non-disappearance, we get 1 out of 16. And so the first question asks us, what's the probability the first 5 offsprings have small grins and can disappear? So we take this probability, 3 out of 16, and we make it power to the 5 because it's the first 5, and we get 0.023%. For B, it asks us what is the probability that if 8 offsprings are produced, the 5 have large grins and can disappear, and 3 have small grins and cannot disappear. So for the 5 that have large grins and can disappear, this is the probability, 9 out of 16. And we put the 8, because it's out of 8, on top, and the factorial of that divided by factorial of 5 times 8 minus 5, which is 3, and the factorial of that. So we multiply that by the 9 out of 16 to the power of 5 times 1 out of 16, which is the probability of small grin and non-disappearance, to the power of 3 will give us 0.23%. And C, what is the probability that an individual offspring can have small grin and can disappear, or have small grin and cannot disappear? So we just add them together because it's a OR question. We're following the sum rule. That should give us 25%. And finally, what is the probability that the first 4 offsprings have large grins and can disappear, and the next 4 offsprings have small grins and cannot disappear? So we simply times those 2 together, and both will be to the power 4 because it's asking us the first 4 and the next 4. So that will give us 0.000157%.
Okay, so I've got problems 4 and 5 because they're really quick. So 4, we look at the phylogeny, and we're able to tell that it's an autosomal dominant because you can see it in every generation, and it's 50% or greater in almost every single generation. For B, we said it was Y-linked inheritance because every single male descendant from a male that had it displays the trait. For C, we said it was autosomal recessive because it skips generations, and it also has male and female that display the phenotype. For D, we said it was X-linked recessive because more males will have it, and it will also skip a generation. E, we said it was autosomal recessive because we see it skips generation, and then when both have it, all their offspring will also display the trait. For 5, it was just fill in the blanks, and we said the sum probability rule is used for mutually exclusive events, while the chi-squared compares the observed outcome of a genetic cross to what was expected. More males are affected than females when a trait follows X-linked recessive inheritance, while an affected male produces 100% affected daughters when a trait follows X-linked dominant inheritance. When calculating probability, the word "or" indicates that one would use the sum rule. In probability, the term independent is used to describe events that have no influence on each other. When a trait follows autosomal recessive inheritance, both males and females are affected with the same frequency, and the trait can skip generations. When a trait follows Y-linked inheritance, affected fathers produce 100% affected sons. Sampling error is high when analyzing the inheritance of traits in humans because the sampling size is typically low. For the purposes of the chi-square test involving genetics problems, the degrees of freedom equals the number of phenotypic classes minus 1.
Hey guys, so here we're going to do questions 1 and 2 from the week 4 practice problems. Question 1 says, suppose that you are interested in studying the inheritance of 2 traits in garden peas. And it goes on to set up the problem.
So you set up a cross between true breeding plants with green and inflated pods with the true breeding plant with yellow and constricted pods. All of the F1 plants have a green and constricted pod. So you self-fertilize the F1 plants and obtain the following results. So A says propose a null hypothesis to test the chi-square results. And so hypothesis is simple. It's a 9 to 3 to 3 to 1. And to calculate the chi-square for this value, you do all that math. You guys know how to do it. You take the received results and you subtract out the expected result squared over the expected for each possible trait. And you add all those together and you find the square root of that number. And so with this one, we came out with an X value of 6.6, which is too high because we only have 4 traits. So anything over 3 is gonna reject our hypothesis. There you go. We can reject that one. So question 2, in shaker mice, the shaking trait is recessive to normal, and it is thought to be found on the X chromosome. Another gene thought to be located on an autosome influences coat pigmentation. So black is dominant to white, but they're codominant, so a heterozygote will have black and white spots. So A is pretty simple. Based on what have we learned in class? What inheritance pattern best describes the coat pigmentation in mice? And it's codominance because both traits can be expressed. So the next question, a true breeding normal with no tremors black female is crossed to a shaker white male. So right here you have the female and the male. So determine the genotypes and phenotypes of the F1 offspring. So F1 offspring will all be heterozygotes for both traits. So if we draw our Punnett square over here, which is a mix of 2 F1 offsprings, we'll get these results. For all 6 possibilities, we have the observed, which is right here, that 3, 11, 4, 3, 5, and 0, and the expected, which is the 5, 9, 5, 2, 3, 2. So on the next page here, I have all the math drawn out. Again, we want to run a chi-square test, which is, again, observed minus expected. You square that number and divide it by the expected. And when you add all those together, you get a value, and you want to take the square root of that value. And for that, we got 1.891, which is well below the n, or the expected of 5. We get 5 because there are 6 possible traits, and you subtract 1. So we are able to fail to reject that hypothesis.